Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. You're listening to PHLY Flyers. That's right, PHLY. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. With me, as always, the city's #1 Philadelphia Flyers beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. What's up, Chuck?
Doing okay. I love the boosting of me. I really appreciate that.
I mean, who's gonna take the no one's gonna argue this.
Okay, I mean, you know what? Let's not.
There's only like 3 of you guys
That is
left.
true. There aren't that many left. Jordan Hall does a good job
Jordan
too.
does an excellent
does a good job.
Jordan is the hardest working guy in the entire city, maybe in the entire sportscape. Not to sell you short. I don't work hard at all. I'm not even putting myself in this conversation. Jordan does a great job because he's in on everything. You are the best writer to me. You're the best hockey writer in the city, and you also cover them day to day. It's not like you're just doing features. So, #1 beat reporter, I think it's fair.
I mean, I'll take the compliment. I'm not complaining.
There was this guy at The Athletic who was pretty good, but oh shit, no, that was you.
It's me.
Yeah, that was you. Now he's here with us. So we have a lot to get to today. It was the final day in Voorhees of rookie camp. They have a single day off tomorrow, Wednesday, before main camp opens Thursday, and today on the final day of rookie camp.
And it's not even really a day off. It's physicals day. And also the day where they get in front of the cameras and take all the pictures that they use.
No on ice and no media?
No media.
No, so
I have a
your
day off
tomorrow. Congratulations. It's your only one until April.
Exactly.
And then Thursday main camp opens. But on this final day of rookie camp, General Manager Danny Briere addressed the assembled media, and we're going to get into a lot of what he talked about today because I think there's some very interesting quotes about the young players, the veterans, the coach, the mindset going into the season, the goalie. We're going to get into all of it. I have to start with what was my absolute favorite part, and it was at the very beginning when he's asked about the health of the veterans, and clearly this is a question about Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson.
Obviously.
But he throws in, because he says, knock on wood, like everyone's pretty healthy. J.R. Avon was banged up. And he said, Matt, is that Brown?
Yeah, Mateo Mann.
Oh, Mateo, right. We talked about that. Mateo Mann, also a little banged up. But pretty much everyone healthy going into main camp. However, obviously, Ellis will not be on the ice. And that just... It made me laugh because, I mean, he's just throwing it in there because if any, so just to head off the question.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is just a little bit of that that transparency we've been, like, it doesn't even need to be said at this point, but he's just re-saying it just so no one can ask him, like, we've been wondering about Ryan Ellis for 2 years, and they've told us, like, his career's over, man.
Yeah,
like, he's Pronger. Like, he's on the payroll because this is how it works. If he retires, he doesn't get paid, and he wants to get paid, but it's over for him. They're telling us that, though, and it's just one of those stupid little things that if you were mad at the previous regime about the way they handled things, we can't say that about them, even though, like, we couldn't say it before. They told us, but they're telling us again. It just made me laugh.
We'll find reasons to be mad at the new regime.
We'll find plenty of reasons to be mad at them over the next few months, but it's just a little bit more of that. We're different. That it's just a small little takeaway. There was plenty of way more important things said in this, but that was my biggest takeaway.
Well, it's always kind of amusing when Ryan Ellis comes up, just because.
Oh, right, him.
Oh yeah, he's still here, kind of a little bit, and yeah, his career is done. Unfortunately, I always will feel bad for Ryan Ellis. I was really looking forward to seeing him play with the Flyers. I'd always liked him as a player in Nashville.
The best defenseman.
Yeah, and then
he was going to be the best defenseman the Flyers have had since Chemo Tiemann and
probably
got hurt.
Probably, yeah. And
since
then
blood clot Chemo Tiemann.
And then he got flyered.
And then Yeah, he just had a multi-layered injury that no one could explain for 2 years.
Oh my God.
It turns out there is no explanation. He's just done.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we can move on from Ryan Ellis because it's not all that important. What is important, though, is the return of Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson and where they kind of slot into this lineup. And what I liked was Briere acknowledging, yeah, it was probably great for Noah Cates and Morgan Frost's development last year. And Owen Tippett as well, like guys who would, maybe Atkinson would have been playing over.
Sure.
But really, those two young centers, probably great for their development that they had those high leverage minutes. It was them. They were the guys.
Yeah, there's no one else, really.
The only center on the roster coming in, the coach hated and moved to the wing. So it was them. And while he acknowledges, yeah, that was great for the rebuild, great for their development, but ultimately we want them in the situations they're going to succeed. We want them in the role that we see for them going forward. Right. And that ain't 1 and 2C for these guys. Yeah. It's further down the lineup.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Couturier and Atkinson, and I totally get this from a fan perspective, is people are not going to fully believe that these guys are healthy until they actually see them, number one, at camp, but not everybody goes to camp. Number two, in preseason games, and then number three, in an actual regular season game, just because they've been burned so much over the last 3-4 years with hearing that, oh no, they're healthy, they're coming back, and then, oh no, he's dead, actually. You'll never see him again. And what I will say about Couturier and Atkinson is that even though these sorts of things get said by Briere and whatnot, that, yeah, they're healthy, like I've watched Sean Couturier and Cam Atkinson skate with their teammates throughout this month when I've been at the practice facility because, again, as we mentioned, basically everybody's been back since the 1st of September, and they've been doing these informal practice scrimmage skates with all of the vets to the point where they literally, when they're done, they will do basically what happens at the end of every practice, for those that don't know, is they all go in a circle in the face-off circle and do stretches. And they've been doing that. Like, it might as well be a formal practice. It's just that there aren't coaches out there because they're not allowed to be. But, like, Couturier and Atkinson look like Couturier and Atkinson. They are involved in checks. They're battling in the corner. They're skating up and down the ice. Like, these guys are healthy now. Whether that doesn't last into the season, I guess we'll see. But the Flyers are not lying in that they're saying that these guys are healthy. They are out there. I have seen them. They are real, and they are healthy enough to start camp at presumably as close to 100% as guys in their 30s coming off of major surgeries can be.
I was happy to see somebody ask, because it's, on one hand, we are happy to see them. Like, I want them to be healthy. Right. I want their careers to continue. Like a career-ending back or neck injury, that ain't cool for anybody. No. But their return, we've talked about this a couple of days ago, can affect what happens in this rebuild. One, they're good players. Like, Sean Couturier is going to help you win more games than you won last year. He is that type of player if he is 100%. Cam Atkinson, he can help you out on special teams. He's going to score goals for you. Torts guy, like, he's also a key piece of what we thought the team was going to be a few years ago when they were trying to win. He's a good player when healthy. We don't necessarily want that.
Yeah, right.
Like, we as fans, like, we want the team to be bad. That is the point of acknowledging the rebuild. Like, okay, now be bad, so that we can get as many, lottery tickets as we can get, and then have the high-end players a few years from now so we can hit the ground with Gauthier and Michkov and all these guys and be a cup contender eventually for the first time in a decade. I like how he said it is a balancing act. Like, Danny Briere said, listen, we're not tanking games. That's not happening. We want to bring these young guys up and develop them, absolutely. But we want them to be a part of, he said, winning culture. Now, they're not making the playoffs. They're not going to win a ton of games. But a culture of a team that goes out and tries to win every night and leaves everything on the ice. And maybe it's not ideal, like, we need every high-end, possibility we can get. But I do think it is ideal in terms of this is what the team, like, especially since we think the GM and president are going to be the same when they're good again, and maybe John Tortorella is not the coach, but he's somewhere. He's somewhere in the organization, I think. they want all of this in place. And I don't think that's a horrible way to start.
To me, Couturier, like Atkinson, you're hoping he comes back healthy. Maybe he gets traded, whatever.
Yeah.
But to me, Couturier is actually really important to all of this for a couple. And it's really important for the Flyers for Couturier to come back close to 100%. Not because he'll make them win too many games and they're going to get the 8th overall pick rather than the 4th. Like, yeah, that could happen and that would be a bummer. But to me, Couturier coming back healthy would be huge for this team in a good way on a lot of levels. Number one, and we've talked about this before, if he's close to what he used to be, he's going to help the development of guys because you can put somebody on Couturier's line and it won't be as difficult. They'll have easier minutes because Couturier is doing all the difficult things while they're just allowed to go out and work on their offense and work on their creativity. So that's number one. Number two, though, and this really is the big thing for me with Couturier, that contract. And if he's
going to be around.
If he can come back and be really good Sean Couturier, everyone should very much be rooting for this because that means that one of two things could happen. Both of these things would be good. The first thing is, okay, he's back. He's still real good. Now we can have the conversation with him about, hey, would you be willing to waive that no move because you probably don't fit the timeline anymore? That would be number one, which would be a great thing because if he's willing to waive the no move, then you maybe get some actual value back for him. Maybe you don't have a potential albatross on your cap. Also, there's the possibility that if he comes back and is really good and is still the Sean Couturier of old, I don't think it's completely insane to think that he maybe could stay really good. You know, that's the hope. The hope here is that he comes back, he's Sean Couturier, and even when he's 35 years old, he's still Sean Couturier, and now you got Matvei Michkov coming in, and you still have a really good 2C in Sean Couturier, and with the increase in the cap ceiling, maybe $7.75 million doesn't look that bad anymore, given that after next year, it's going to start skyrocketing as long as we don't have another pandemic.
It sounds like I'm hearing it could go up $5 million next year. Like there's a chance this thing, and I know it's the NHL. You never know. They could cry broke and be like, we have to detract some teams. Like whatever. But it's possible that 775 isn't what we think in our head of it now. Like It's a much lower percentage of the cap than it is. Than it has been through this stagnant cap era.
Exactly. And to me, the people who are looking at Couturier's return and kind of saying to themselves, oh, God, he's going to make us better. Yes, that would be not the best thing because you want to get high draft picks. But to me, him coming back and being bad is so much worse of a scenario for the Flyers because that means
You're
that
stuck.
literally through 2030, you've got a $7.75 million cap albatross that you can't do anything
He's
about.
He's not helping you and you cannot trade
Exactly.
him.
Like, it would be such a bad thing if Couturier comes back. It would honestly be better for the Flyers if he just were to get hurt again. The worst case scenario is he comes back, plays, and is bad. So fans very much, yes, maybe he'll help them win a few more extra games. But the worst case scenario is not that. The worst case scenario is he comes back, is a shell of himself. Then he's untradeable because no one's going to take him even if he would waive the no movement clause. And in 4 or 5 years, when we're hoping this team has turned the corner, he's still an albatross on their cap.
That's I liked what Danny said also. He talked about he's read the predictions for what everyone expects from this team. And, he says everyone is picking us to be last, bottom 3 in the NHL. Yeah, and maybe that's
not wrong.
Yeah, maybe that's what they end up being. But he says, I hope the players, especially the veterans that are coming back, read that and use it as motivation. They're not going to do anything to improve the team. I mean, maybe at the trade deadline, if they're so much better than we expect, they do something. Maybe. But they're putting it on the guys in the locker room.
To be sure.
Listen, we added Mark Stahl, Garnett Hathaway, but we didn't actually add to this team. No. We're not going to do anything to help you. It's on all of you. If you don't want to be miserable all season, go ahead, go out and prove it. And while you're proving it, you're going to earn higher places in the lineup. I really like how this entire thing is, how they're presenting it. We're not tanking, but we expect to be bad. Everyone expects us to be bad. We'll see how it works out. It's on all of the players to prove that wrong.
I just think it's nice, and I think this really goes into why the fans, at least the fans I deal with on a regular basis, are nowhere near as angry as they were last year, or even the year before. It doesn't.
No one seems delusional.
Well, it's not even that. It doesn't. Well, that is exactly what it is, though. It doesn't seem like people feel like they're being lied to anymore. There was a long period of time where fans really felt like they were being sold a bill of goods, and that the people at the top were just bald-faced lying to their face.
It was honestly, lying was the worst of, or was the better of two evils, because the other alternative to that was the people running my favorite hockey team are morons. Like, if they actually believe what they're telling us, we have no chance ever.
Yeah.
Like, they are never going to figure this out because they're idiots. I hope they're lying. Like, I honestly hoped that they were lying to me, because if you're looking at what I'm looking at and you're like, no, we're gonna get this turned around, then I'm sorry, you're on the wrong channel.
Yeah.
Like you were watching the Hurricanes. You
saw them play. That's what a good team looks like.
There's something the matter with you. If you looked at the good teams and looked at this one and were like, we're close. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Stop saying it.
Exactly.
And at least they have stopped saying it, but they're not putting it out of the realm of possibility that this group of players could be more than we're expecting.
And it could. Hockey's weird.
Yeah.
Truly, weird things happen in hockey.
Stupid team. Like, if Carter Hart has a .926 save percentage, they're going to be in the playoffs. Like, because that's what happens in hockey.
Yeah.
You get goalied some nights, and if he has 40 starts and 38 of them are awesome, they're going to the playoffs. Like, that's just what happens. If you think the Flyers are going to make the playoffs, man, you can probably get some great odds. And you know where you can get those odds? You can get them at DraftKings. Yes, football is back. It is in full swing, but hockey's coming back too. But football's back in full swing with another week of epic games. And who's got you covered on the action for every single one of them? It's DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers can bet $5 on football and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. But nobody is missing out on this action if you've been a DraftKings customer. Guess what? It's not just new customers. You can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. That's right. Plenty of time left this month to take advantage of what DraftKings has going on for new and existing customers. So get in on NFL Week 3 action with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code PHLY to sign up. New customers can bet just $5 and take home $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code PHLY. The crown is yours.
Here we go.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Just call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in ONT. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility. Terms are responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Bill, I give you like a 90 out of 100 on that.
That
was a good
bad.
one. There were a couple hiccups, but for the most part, you pretty much nailed that one.
I did. I was pretty pleased with the way that one went. I mean, we're into week 2 now. This is what, show 6?
Sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right. So you're the math guy, but I do think it is. I do think it is getting better. I also don't have the new read, so I had to improv week 3 for week 2 there.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so that was something.
It's a pro move right there by you, honestly.
It's probably like they're not a sponsor anymore, and that's why I don't have a read. Right. Just gave out a free. All right. Anyway, back to the Flyers.
The hockey team, the Flyers.
Yeah, so they talked about the veterans and the honestly the positives and negatives of Couturier and Atkinson coming back.
Sure.
But then they got into the rookies and what was the takeaway from the rookie game, especially Forster, Brink, and Desnoyers. My takeaway from this was rookie camp and the rookie games weren't that big a deal. Like, especially for Tyson Forster, who it's like, Briere was like, yeah, maybe, hopefully it was a wake-up call. Maybe they just didn't get some bounces. Like, wouldn't say he was making excuses for him, but was just kind of saying what could have happened, why he wasn't, the most dominant player on the ice in the rookie game, and then saying he's getting ready for main camp. Like, oh, okay. So that's the most important thing. Not that that's a shock. Like, John Tortorella isn't at one, and he's going to be at the other. So it's pretty apparent which one's most important.
To be sure.
But I was encouraged to hear that rookie camp isn't going to, and the rookie games especially, put Forster further behind than he would be otherwise.
I did get the sense, talking with Danny today, that his comments in a way were a little bit of a reaction to the comments of Ian LaPerriere. I just think Ian LaPerriere, he was frustrated. They'd lost 2 straight games. He's a competitive guy, and he was hoping for more from the guys who he expected to lead the way to get him some wins. Are those games meaningless? Yeah, they're meaningless, but you're still competitive. You still want to see your guys win. I think he was a little frustrated, and I think Briere came up there with the goal of kind of basically just telling everybody, take a big old step back, calm down. It's not the end of the world that Tyson Forster didn't score 2 goals. It's not the end of the world that Bobby Brink didn't look great. If they're struggling in preseason too, then we got a problem. But let's not write these guys off because they didn't have the greatest weekend in Allentown after 1 practice.
And that's something I think, like, we put a lot of emphasis on those rookie games because this is what we're doing.
Right.
And this is what's going on.
To be sure.
It was the only thing that was happening last week. And it's the only thing that has happened up to this point until Danny spoke today. So we're going to put a lot of focus on it. But it was as you wrote in your article, like, cross somewhere between preseason game and glorified scrimmage.
Exactly.
After a single practice. Like, they had a morning skate, but it was like Thursday, 1 practice, morning skate, 2 games. Who knows? The line mates you've never been with before. Who knows? All sorts of reasons that, okay, let's take the step back and remember what that was. The actual important thing starts Thursday.
To be sure. And I think Briere, this is actually, I got a kick out of this. I almost laughed, like just chuckled in the press conference room. But Briere, then he goes into talking about the guys who he did think were impressive. And he literally looks down at his paper. He said, I wrote them all down. He had a list of the guys who he wanted to give shout outs to in this press conference. And there were quite a few of them. It was Wisdom, Tuamala. It was pretty much all the guys who we said yesterday. Barkey, Chiernik, Ginning, got to say it right. It's Ginning.
You've been saying it right. I've been saying Ginning.
You've been saying Ginning. Bonk, he liked a lot. So there were a lot of guys. Emile Andre, he said he thought improved as the game went on, and by the third period was playing really well in the game he played in. So really, it was, number one, it was nice to hear that my evaluation of the players lined up with the GM's evaluation of the players. That was great.
He liked the 3 defensemen a lot from what I read in the quotes.
It sure seems like it.
Like Andre, he said got better as the game went on, but he seems like a guy who might be kind of works his way into the game the way we said about Desnoyers and Wisdom as well. To be sure. And like, everyone seems to have been impressed with Bonk, which is really good to see. And he brought up what we said yesterday. He's also 18.
Yeah. Like,
this was his first taste of pro hockey. And so he kind of got to get in there and look better than expected. And Ginning is... He even said, like, gonna see some time this year.
Yeah.
It seems like he might be the first call up.
Ginning, I think, and I've said this on Twitter, I've said this on the show, I don't think fans fully understand how high people in the organization are on him. I think the people in the organization know that he's nothing more than a third-pair defenseman, but I think they feel like he is an NHL-ready third-pair defenseman, and he has a real chance of making this team.
And this team's defense is real bad.
It's not
so
good.
It's definitely possible. He could make this team. It's not out of the realm of possibility. He makes this team. Sure. Like, okay, we're going to play him over Zamula and Sealer. All right, no loss.
Yeah, right.
Like, I like both of those guys. I'm a fan of Nick Sealer because he's a badass.
True.
But is he going to help you win games down the line? I don't know.
I mean, he's not part of the future. Yeah. That's clear. Yeah. He might help you win a game or two this year, but
I don't want to win it.
He's not going to be part of the Mitchkoff Flyers.
Yes, exactly.
So he's just a guy who's around and he takes minutes for now, but he's not someone who you're penciling in 3-4 years down the road as a key piece.
When you sent me the quotes from this Briere interview, whatever it was today, scrum. Was it a press conference or just like
I
an
would
informal?
call it a press conference.
Okay.
There's a room next to the media room in Voorhees that they have these press conference-ish things where basically the guys sit at a table and then we all interview them. So I would call it a press conference.
Okay. At this presser today, I was like, oh, this had to be a Charlie question. And apparently it wasn't. You said you think it was Bill Meltzer when you asked, or someone asked, about Lisinski and Allison.
Yeah.
They're not waiver exempt anymore. They're getting a little older. And I don't know. It seemed they're like, yeah, they're getting passed by. Like it's happening.
It really does seem like they might be. Lisinski is in a really tough spot because he didn't establish himself as an NHL player last year. Tortorella did not like what he saw from him. It was pretty clear at the end of the year when we were asking about him that Tor's just like, oh yeah, he's just some dude. I don't really care. Allison, to me, is the guy who I don't know where he fits, but I still like him. I think he's an NHL player. I think he showed last year that he can be an effective one. He showed flashes of being a good one. But I don't know where he fits in this lineup, especially if Tyson Foerster makes the team. Because you got Atkinson coming back. Lawton's going to be on the wing. You sign Garnet Hathaway. Delorier presumably is going to get a lot of games because he's Nick Delorier and he's there to, I guess, protect the kids. I guess that's the idea. Basically. There we go. So where does Wade Allison fit? Is he... I guess he makes the team, but it would not shock me in the slightest if he's the scratch for game one and he has to wait for some injuries to really get his chance to show that he can take another step, because I still think there's something there.
He's a good player.
I think he's a good player.
He just cannot stay healthy. It is just, and it's the way he plays. Like there's not, I mean, he's a little cannonball out there, man. He's
not little. He's pretty big.
I just mean like he's Mike Richards out there. He's running around. He's going to the net, and you can get hurt doing those things. Sure. And he's already had like the history of knee injuries in college, and he's just been banged up his entire pro career. I see a dude who it's like, man, even if he only plays 50 games for us, hopefully some of them come in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But when you're looking for guys you can depend on, and also he's not young anymore.
No, he's
like
25.
Yeah, he's in. This is him. He's in his prime. He needs to, like I said, or like he's one of these S or get off the pot guys.
Yeah.
Like he needs to make this team or he ain't going to be here.
Allison is a guy where I don't know if it's ultimately going to work in Philly, but he's a guy who I could easily see at age 28 have a breakout season for Phoenix, Arizona, or something.
Has 22 goals.
Yeah, I could see it because there's something there. I hope the Flyers are the team that unearths it, but it's starting to seem like it's a numbers game. There's only so many of these guys you can give a lot of ice time to and give the kind of usage they need in order to develop into what they may or may not develop into. And Allison last year, while he made more of a positive impression than Tanner Lisinski, he needs to have a really good camp. Let me put it that way. I could still see it working out here, but he needs to kill it. He needs to have the kind of camp that the prospects need to have, in my mind, to really carve out a role as an every night player to start the season.
I think definitely to be in the lineup, he needs to do that. Because listen, I don't think anyone was particularly impressed with Lisinski last year.
No.
But like we've liked everything we've seen out of Wade Allison. The coach does not agree.
The coach was really hard. Torts was really hard on Allison, and he was open about that he pushed Wade Allison a lot. And he said, honestly, I really like what he turned into over the course of the year.
He seems like a Torts type of guy if he could stay on the ice.
And that's the thing. There was that comical press conference where Torts basically just said he's always hurt about 10 times over the course of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was... I didn't love it. I thought it was a little much. Because to me, it hinted that Torts was implying that Allison was kind of milking it with these injuries. I think that was sort of the implication that he allowed people to draw from that presser, and I don't like that because to me, that one of the big problems with the Flyers over the last few years has been guys coming back too early from injuries.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be putting pressure on a guy like Allison to come back too early from injury, to be creating that kind of culture. That said, he wasn't wrong in that Wade Allison gets hurt a lot, and it's a problem. Now, again, as you mentioned, part of that is his style of play. Maybe part of that is just his body, that, some guys get hurt a lot. That's just the way it goes. But he needs to, number one, have a great camp. Number two, if he has a great camp and earns himself a spot in the lineup, he can't afford to get injured. He needs to, at least for the first 2 months of this year, be healthy, stay in the lineup, and then make it clear that he needs to stay in the lineup.
Yeah, and score some goals while you're at it.
That would help.
Because I see so much in this guy.
So do I.
We talk about how stacked they are in the bottom half of their lineup, but he's one of those dudes who
I don't know if stacked is the word I would use. They have a lot of guys.
They have a lot of bodies. They have a lot of bodies in the bottom half of their lineup, and a lot of guys who project to be NHLers.
True.
And maybe good ones, but not top 6 forwards,
Agreed.
not top 2, top 4 defensemen.
Yeah.
They have a lot of dudes who are in that bottom half. Some of them might be really effective. I think Allison could be one of them. Can't make the club in the tub, though, man.
That's what they say.
You have to be out there. It's I'm rooting for him. He's one of the dudes I'm rooting for. One, it's just he's one of those guys that's been around so long.
Yeah.
Like I said yesterday with Morgan Frost, I'm pot committed now. I need to see how this turns out.
Yeah.
I don't want him to fail or make it somewhere else.
Yep.
I want to see him do it here.
Yep.
It just seems like he might not get that opportunity. But you all have the opportunity to take advantage of one hell of a deal from our friends over at FOCO. FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. It's football and tailgating season. Hockey just around the corner. It's going to get a little chilly. We know it's cold in that rink, Charlie. You go to practice every day. Voorhees is a cold arena.
You're not wrong. You need a good jacket.
You need a good one. And whether you're looking for a jacket or overalls, hoodies, hats, sunglasses, bags, everything you need for a game, for a tailgate, you can get it over at FOCO. Whether you're looking for team apparel and accessories, toys, collectibles, novelty items, stuff like we have on this set right here, it's all available. And FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of this show. And for all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY for 10% off. That's PHLY. Take advantage of that today with our friends at FOCO. Charlie, there was one thing that did come up in this was who's the decision maker? Because we've joked around Keith Jones, he's the president, but I'm sure he's in on hockey ops stuff.
Absolutely.
But he's here to appease fans.
He's the public-facing guy.
Yes, he is going to make the comments. He is going to tell us about what is decided by the actual hockey ops guys, it seems. At least that's my interpretation of his role.
I would mostly
Danny Briere
agree.
is the GM. Sure, okay. But John Tortorella sounds like he's in charge, and it was a question okay, so opening night, who's going to make this decision? And Danny Briere says, it's a collaborative effort. It's a team. We're going to have disagreements, and I like disagreements. That's how we get better, is by us disagreeing and finding the answer. Okay. What happens when you have those disagreements, though? Who wins? Kinda sounds like the answer is John Tortorella.
Well, I think John Tortorella absolutely has a lot of power in this situation. There's a reason why they've called it a triumvirate, with Jonesy, with Briere, and with Torts. Torts has probably more power than NHL coaches usually have. And in part, it's because Torts was truthfully one of the drivers of this rebuild idea. That was part of the reason why he endeared himself to the fans, because he was the only guy who seemed not to be talking nonsense last year.
The most sane person in the building was somehow John freaking Tortorella, the lunatic who would fight you in the stands. That was the most sane person in the building for a majority of last season.
Yes. So I do think he has more power than your average coach, and I do think that in the end, when we're talking about in-game stuff, obviously the buck stops with Tortorella. Yeah. They can't do anything. It's not like Danny Briere is going to call down to the bench and say, play Morgan Frost more, get him off the fourth line. So Tortorella is going to have that power. The real question for me is what happens if Briere brings up somebody or Briere puts someone on the team and Torts just doesn't like him.
We saw it happen Who was it last year that they played like
Hayden Hodgson.
It was Hayden
he played
Hodgson.
One period basically, and then Torch decided this guy can't play.
Played like 3 shifts, and that was it. And they went with. Was that the game where they had 7 defensemen?
It was the very first game of the year.
Did they go with 10 forwards?
Maybe.
Or somebody
I'd have
got
to go
hurt?
back.
I can't remember the exact situation, but like Tortorella, I think they were down a forward, and he still wouldn't play Hodgson. But I don't remember. But it was like, all right, yeah, Danny can make that decision to bring up a guy. That don't mean the coach is going to be like, oh yeah, he's going to get ice time.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to me to see when they butt heads, who ultimately wins. Because, like, can Briere, if a guy gets called up and isn't playing, can Briere march into Tortorella's office and say, you got to play this guy? And if you don't play this guy, I'm going to throw shit. Like, Briere, what I've been told is that Briere does have that fiery side where he's willing to get in your face and he's willing to tell you this is the way it is. It's just John Tortorella, like, that's his every moment personality, and it's going to be fascinating to see if Briere can actually on the regular stand up to somebody like Tortorella, because look, we've watched Danny Briere in press conferences, we've watched him in interviews, he's been a Flyer really for years in a lot of different ways, and he just gives off that nice guy vibe.
Yeah.
And John Tortorella does not give off that nice guy vibe.
And it's just like, I don't want to compare this to a romantic relationship, but
I'm curious where you're taking this
These
one.
two are going to be linked together probably for a long, long time. When you have to live with somebody, not have to, when you have the opportunity to live with someone and do so for, you know, a long-term situation, is Hayden Hodgson the one you're going to start the fight over?
Yeah.
Like, you know what?
You're going to die on that hill?
You know what? This ain't worth the fight.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably going to depend on the level of the guy and what they actually think of them. You know, if it's like, you know, the treatment Stamkos got early when Michkov comes over, and it's like, yeah, we think he needs to be benched. Well, you're wrong. So no, we are going to have this fight.
Yeah, this is a fight we need to have.
But when it's Tanner Laczynski, it's going to be like, yeah, okay, you win.
And there's an element, too, there where it's like they're trusting Tort.
Yes.
Part of this plan is that they're trusting Tortorella's ability to evaluate these guys and to come and tell them, this guy stinks, this guy is good and needs to be part of it. So some of it is Briere needs to have a backbone at times, but some of it is just that they are in a lot of ways deferring to John Tortorella's expertise when it comes to, you know, for lack of a better term, like which guy's got that dog in him. Like they're trusting Torts to evaluate that. They are.
And it makes sense. It does make sense that if you're going to bring in a guy like John Tortorella and you look at the situation, all right, well, if he's not going to win games, why the hell is he here?
Yeah.
It's to be this evaluator and to be another voice in the room. I understand it. I just think I want my GM in charge because he has the bigger picture in mind.
Right.
But, you know, they did ask, like, this was a question that came up today. It was like, well, you know, what happens when it doesn't align? And Danny kind of said, you know, when he was hired last year, because he's the AGM or the assistant to the whatever it was.
Special assistant,
Yeah,
something
special
like that,
assistant to the, he's Dwight Schrute, basically. He says, you know, when they hired him, I thought he was going to be one of these guys who just leans on his vets.
Yeah.
And he was pleasantly surprised because it was, listen, look at what he did make didn't lean on the vets. You know, we joked all year about the Kevin Hayes situation.
Yeah.
Like, you know, bench Kevin Hayes.
Not a center.
Openly hated Kevin Hayes. And Noah Cates, who's not a center, was like, no, he is. Yeah, he's our 1C now.
Yeah.
How you like that?
Kevin Hayes, who's been a center for nearly a decade in the NHL, not a center. Noah Cates, who's been a wing most of his career, he's a better center than you.
So he did in certain situations go youngster over veteran. And I guess that's good, but he does strike you as a guy who's like, yeah, Mark Stahl's in the top 4.
Yeah. The defense to me is going to be the really fascinating part because quite frankly, there's just more spots available on forward. You've got 12 spots. Theoretically, I guess you could dress an extra guy, but you wouldn't because no one ever does unless they're trying to punish Tony DeAngelo for something. That was when they dressed 5 defensemen because he refused to play Tony DeAngelo. But the defenseman setup is going to be really interesting because they have so many bodies, but they also have so many prospects that are real close. Like we talked about it. You look at your top 6 and it's looking like, obviously Sanheim and Risto are in the lineup. Cam York's in the lineup. Mark Stahl's in the lineup. Then you have Nick Seeler and Sean Walker. There's 6 defensemen right there.
Zamula's not.
Zamula makes the
exempt.
team. He makes the team presumably. I don't think they'll want to take the risk of losing him for nothing. So he's the 7 who is trying to push a Sean Walker, a Nick Seeler, even a Mark Stahl out of the lineup. And that's not even accounting for the fact that Ronnie Addert's real close. Adam Ginning apparently is real close. I'm real high on Emil Andre. There are guys that are going to need playing time, and you've got all these vets. And I'm going to be very curious to see, number one, how Tortorella does it. Number two, if Tortorella isn't playing the kids, what does Briere do about it, if anything?
And we will absolutely have to keep an eye on that. There was one more thing. Oh, yes, the goalie situation. Because first it was a question about the backups, and we'll get to that. But he was asked about the 2018 Hockey Canada investigation. And it seems like they're just throwing their hands up at this point. He's like, we don't know.
Yeah.
We've asked. They're not telling us anything. We would like to have an answer. We're not getting one. So what the hell can we do? And in the, it seems like the most, I wasn't there, so I can't get the tone, but the most decisive answer we've got about Carter Hart, because it was an ask about the backups, are the backups going to play more? He goes, well, Carter's our number one.
Yeah.
And he's proven to be a number one NHL goalie, which I do agree with.
Yeah.
But it just seems like they are very frustrated with this situation.
I think they have every right to be honest, because this has been hanging in limbo for a year. Like, when I write stories on this, I'm going back to the quote that Carter Hart gave us on this at the start of last year's training camp, which was him saying, I'm sorry, I can't comment on this. It's an open investigation. There's legal things involved. And that was a year ago. Like, we're coming up on a year and we're still waiting on any type of resolution as to who is involved. Is there going to be punishment? Like, what are the implications of this? And if I'm the Flyers, I got to be frustrated because look, we've talked about this on the show as well, about the idea of even if Carter Hart is ultimately clear he wasn't involved in this, is he even part of the future? I think you're absolutely right in that I think they would have very, very much taken offers on him in the summer had this not been hanging over his head. But this is slowing down their ability to decide what they want to do with their goalies. Because, I mean, I'm sure they know more about like Hart's involvement or lack thereof than we do, to be sure. Like, I'm sure Hart has talked to them about it, I would assume. That said, they're probably getting the story from Hart. They don't know what this investigation is going to say. So they're waiting too on, did one of our players do a really terrible thing? And they got to be frustrated that they still don't know.
And just the hockey aspect of this, like, I do believe Carter Hart has proven to be a number one goalie in the NHL, and he's still young enough to the point where does he have star level potential?
Sure.
But I right now think you put the right team in front of him, he could win you a Stanley Cup, or at least be the starting goalie.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, if he was in Colorado, he wouldn't be
Aiden Hill, like, come on.
Exactly. If he was if he was on a cup contender, he would not hurt their chances at all to win at the very least.
Agreed.
And if he gets hot in the playoffs the way he did, in 2020, at least early, it's definite possibility that he could win it for you.
I would agree.
We'll see if he has star level potential. That said, the contract situation, his age, the situation the team is in, it might not just line up.
Exactly.
And if that's the case, a lot like we've said with Travis Konechny, get something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if it doesn't, cool. Guess what? Carter Hart's going to go for a shit ton. So let's get all that. Well, while this investigation's going on, if there's no resolution, you can't do it. And again, we've harped on this. There are much bigger concerns here than the state of the Philadelphia Flyers as it relates to this investigation from 2018. but we're talking about the hockey team,
Right.
and this is something you have to consider, and it's what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
Like if he's somehow implicated in this, one, they probably don't want him on the team. Like I wouldn't. I'd be like, all right, see you, bro. Like later.
Yeah.
And just there's plenty more, but we are talking about the hockey team, and this is something they have to consider whether he is implicated or not.
Yeah.
He might not be part of this.
I'm shocked that we are now, 48 hours, less than 48 hours before the start of main camp, and there's nothing. Especially given the fact that for months in the summer, the NHL kept being like, it's
Soon.
almost ready, it's
Yeah.
soon, and now we're about to start main camp for everybody, and still nothing.
It's
wild.
I'm sure the Flyers are frustrated. I am absolutely sure. You know what shouldn't be frustrating?
What's that, Bill?
Buying tickets to your favorite events.
I agree.
And
Shouldn't
it
be
is
frustrating.
not at all with Game Time, because buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't ever be stressful. And Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Because Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Philly's coming home. It's the stretch drive. It's hard. I know, man. You're in your 30s now. You don't just get up okay, yeah, we're going to easily plan what Phillies games
You
are
might be in
going
your
to.
30s. Some of our listeners aren't in their 30s. We
yeah.
have younger listeners. We have
do.
older listeners.
We do have younger listeners. For all of you college-age listeners out there, it is very easy to make plans with your friends. You're like, okay, yeah, we can plan this down the road, and it'll be fun. Man, it's tough. And sometimes you just have an open, let's go to the Phillies game tonight. You can do that no problem with Game Time, because it is the place for last-minute ticket deals. You can forget planning months in advance, because Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. That's a great guarantee there. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Where the hell were we?
We just got done talking about
the Carter
Hockey
Hart
Canada.
situation. So
Carter Hart.
The backups playing a little more. It's something we've talked about because of how much they like Samuel Ersson. Last year, I think they kind of knew about Felix. He didn't have the best AHL season. So it's okay, if he's our backup because we're going to lose him in waivers, he ain't playing. But they liked what they saw out of Ersson. And if his overall numbers weren't great, but
that was primarily because they stuck him in net that final game against the Devils, and he just ate all those goals.
If you look at the game log, he wasn't bad.
No, he was good. I think they're really high on Ersson. It's going to be really interesting, though, to see how this backup goalie competition shakes out. I think it was Wayne Fish who asked the question. It was a good question, just about what happens, especially if we're operating in the assumption that Carter Hart is going to be available for the start of camp, is going to be the starting goalie all year. What do you do for the backup spot? Because you've got Felix Sandstrom's back. He was, I guess, mostly the backup last year. Obviously, Ersson had some times where he jumped in and took that role over, but for the majority of the year, Felix Sandstrom was the backup. He's still under contract. He's still here. Then you have Ersson, who the organization is extremely high on. And then you have Cal Peterson, who, yes, they took him basically to eat salary as a throw-in because that's how LA could get that deal done. That was the value. They got Grans back. They got a pick back. But he's here. He's been an NHL goalie in the past. He's presumably going to be in the mix too. So my guess is that this is kind of just going to be an open competition, and whoever performs the best is going to get the job. And I think out of the three of them, Sam Ersson's the best goalie, so I'm expecting him to win the job, especially if he plays anywhere near as well as he played in last year's camp when he was the best goalie in camp, probably even better than Carter Hart. So I'm expecting Ersson to win this job, but it's still going to be interesting because it's not going to be handed to him. There's three NHL goalies. Now, whether they're good NHL goalies or not, that's a question. But they have three NHL goalies that can battle for the spot, and it's a real competition.
I think Felix Sandstrom is ultimately better than what we saw out of him last year. The way he got thrown into games, it was
kind of unfair.
You're only going to play on the back end of back-to-backs.
True.
So the team got beaten up last night, And now we're going to put the backup goalie in on the what do you think was going to happen? Yeah, they got killed in those games.
He wasn't placed in great situations.
He could have been better, but there was the situations he played in weren't ideal.
I'll be honest, I like Felix Sandstrom as a person. He's a good guy to interview.
Probably not that good.
It's just I've never been super. He's always been a guy. He's got the athleticism. He makes these fantastic saves that can show up in a highlight reel, and then he gives up 1 or 2 goals where you're like, what were you even thinking?
I think a lot of people, especially when he first came over, if you go to like those dev camp scrimmages, you watch him. And it's a little more wide open. It's a scrimmage. He is making highlight saves.
Absolutely.
And I think people really, oh man, this guy's good. It's like, this is just kind of what he does. Like the situation of those games, like the way the games are played, highlighted his strengths.
I agree.
And like Carter Hart doesn't make those saves because he's just square to the shooter and stops it, and it's not. And it was like, oh well, that was an easy save. Well, yeah, because of the way he was positioned.
Yeah, he anticipated he was in position. Yeah,
like he doesn't have to do a Mystery Alaska like rolling pad stack because he was just there.
I like that reference, Bill.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
I love that movie.
I think the last time I saw that movie was like 20 years ago. I should bring it back.
Maybe we'll do a watch along. So the last thing that I want to talk about from the Danny availability today was him talking about John Tortorella, and this was your question.
Yes.
About I think it was last week when we first brought up the Mike Babcock thing that has since resulted in his resignation. Is one of the reasons he was brought in is Columbus believes their overall accountability, one of those buzzwords it's the reason John Tortorella is here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like the Blue Jackets organization believes after Tortorella left, their accountability waned. And so they brought in the next best hard ass in Mike Babcock. And he ends up never coaching the team, actually.
Didn't even make it to training camp.
Because he was a jackass before main camp was even able to begin.
Crazy.
So you ask, is there any fear of a Babcock-like blow-up with Tortorella? And this was very interesting to me because it kind of mirrored an answer when we compared the two last week.
Right. Yeah, and basically what Briere said, and I kind of want to read most of this because it was
and
an
you can
interesting
get all
quote.
These quotes, and Charlie's going to have an article up at allphly.com probably by the end of the day.
Yeah, I would say probably in the next few hours.
Yeah,
I got through about 60% of it, and then I had to record the show, so wasn't able to get the whole thing done. But it will be out tonight.
We are paraphrasing. We're giving you context, but if you want to see the full quotes and Charlie's story, it's always going to be good. Check out all PHLY later today.
Yes, please do. But anyway, this was the quote that Danny had. It was, Torts is a demanding coach, no doubt about that. He's fair. He's to the point. But he has a knack to let the players know he cares about them. He has a knack because it's genuine. He cares about his players. When you hear him talking about his players, he really cares about them. And I think that's kind of what they're hanging on, is that you talk to players about Mike Babcock, and they tend to think that any time that Mike Babcock acts like he cares about you, it's disingenuous. It's fake. This guy only cares about himself. He cares about winning, sure, but he doesn't care about winning for the good of the team. He cares about winning for the good of Mike Babcock. And Briere's opinion, and again, not every single player may share this opinion, but Briere's opinion is that John Tortorella, while he's a hard ass, and while he's going to be tough on you, and while he may say to your face that, you know what, you really sucked last night, and I'm not going to play you tonight, Briere believes it comes from a place of caring and a place of really, giving a shit about the player. And they better be right because we're seeing what happens when players don't believe the coach cares about him and is also a hard ass. He doesn't actually coach a game or even a formal practice for the team. That said, I've seen enough from Torts to believe that at least in Torts' own head, he does care about these players.
And he might just be an excellent actor, but the times I've gotten to interview him, interact with him, he does seem like a genuine, pretty good guy. Like, he's a hard ass. He's not going to take any shit.
Yeah.
He might, his views on hockey might not align with yours. We all remember the Trevor Zegras stuff. But he doesn't come off as a dude like I don't want to be around, which that seems to be the case with Mike Babcock.
Yeah.
Like when Johan Franzen, who had all of his career success under that guy, is like, no, fuck that guy. he's probably not cool.
Exactly.
He's probably not cool.
And I get the sense that, and I think I said this on the show last week, that Torts, for say what you will about him, he is straightforward. You know where you stand with Torts. Maybe the communication sometimes isn't the best because Torts wants the player to initiate the communication, but you pretty much know based on the group meetings when he'll just say, man, that was a shitty play, something like that, and just rip a guy. Like, you know where you stand. Whereas with Babcock, from what I've heard,
it's a little more underhanded.
He plays games with players. He plays head games. I mean, think back to the Mitch Marner thing, where he brings Mitch Marner to his office, says, I want you to rank everyone's work ethic, and then he goes and shows the rest of the team what Mitch Marner ranked everyone. It's that kind of bullshit that players hate.
That is something that gets you in a fist fight in like any other, like, if you don't have like authority over somebody, like that is straight up snitching.
Yeah, oh, it totally
is. That is a dick move.
Yeah.
So Charlie is, as the journalist that he is working to find out who the captain of the Flyers is going to be, and he is not going to rest until he finds out who the captain of the Flyers is going to be. But we found out who the captain of the St. Louis Blues is going to be today, and I cannot wait whenever we have the opportunity to have Steph on the show to talk about Brayden Schenn,
her favorite.
Brayden Schenn, now the 24th, I believe, captain in St. Louis Blues history.
I can't believe you know that.
I read like 3 articles today.
Fair.
I just know how many captains.
I don't know. Maybe it's something that you just keep in your head. You memorize every single team's captain history.
I had to look up. I was like, well, who was their captain? Was it like Tarasenko or something? No, it was Ryan O'Reilly. He took over when Pietrangelo left, and they traded O'Reilly to the Leafs at the deadline. And now Brayden Schenn is the Blues captain. He has been with Craig Berube 2 years here, and now he's entering his 8th year with the Blues, which is insane, and like his 6th, 7th with Berube. One, I can't believe the dude's about to be 32. Like,
it's wild, huh?
It seems, we were just talking the other day about the 2011 rookie game. He's like, yeah, he's the best player not in the NHL. He's 20 years old. It's like,
whole life ahead of him.
He's 32 now. I mean, he's won a cup. What this really did for me was, like, he won reading the articles about it. He won a cup with the Blues in 2019. I'm like, how are they so bad?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they've lost.
They lost people.
O'Reilly, Pietrangelo, and Tarasenko. So yeah, they probably stink now.
Yeah, right.
But it's just crazy how quick it happened. But like the Berube tenure's still going on, and this dude Brayden Schenn, who like grew up here, he's been away since 2017, since the Nolan Patrick draft, and it's just wild how this is all unfolding. Now he's the captain of a franchise.
He's always... It's funny to me to think of him as a captain because I always viewed him as something of a goofball.
Yeah.
And I don't cover him anymore. I really never really covered him. I was sort of around that the 2016-2017 season when I was... And I guess the 2015. So those 2 years I covered him a bit. But like I didn't really build like a strong relationship with him. I was still trying to get my feet wet as a journalist. I was basically half blogging for BSH, half working a full-time marketing job. But I always got the vibe that he was something of a goofball. And maybe he's become more serious as he's gotten older, or maybe he just is a goofball who also is a leader.
I mean, he's on... Kevin Hayes is there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
he's got the support of Kev.
That's got to be a great locker room. I bet that, like with Craig Berube at the top,
yeah, right,
and then those two. But it's finally, just to wrap this up today, because I found it very funny. Speaking of former Flyers and leadership positions, we got we got this submitted to us via Twitter today, and the link isn't clicking, so I'm trying to bring it up as quickly as I can. From Mikey Y on Twitter, longtime listener, he said a nugget from this Greg Wyshynski ESPN article. It's the NHL Superstars Roundtable, and it's Brady Tkachuk was asked, who do you think would make the best current player?
Okay.
Who do you think would make the best coach or GM one day? And he said Claude Giroux would be a great GM, just a very smart person. I think he just knows a lot about the game and would be a great person leading the charge. One, and I don't mean to say this in any derogatory way, because Claude Giroux is one of the greatest Flyers of all time, one of the best hockey players I've ever watched in my life. I've never heard anyone describe him as a very smart person before. I mean, he didn't want to leave the Flyers, which tells me straight up he's not all that bright. But I'm sure he has tons of hockey sensibility. And if nothing else, he got a firsthand lesson for about a decade and what not to
Exactly.
do. So him
Got a lot
running
of
a team,
lessons.
like him running a team, it's like, oh, all I got to do is the opposite of what everyone did while I was the captain of the Flyers, and I bet I could put together a damn good team.
Well, this is just the inevitable march of the Flyers, where Claude Giroux is
he gonna be our coach one day?
destined to be the GM and be the next Bobby Clark.
As someone said, like in a conversation I saw about this, like I really hope that's not the case because I love G,
right?
And like I don't want to have that taste I have in my mouth with Bobby Clark now. The difference being, Bobby Clark won and was like nothing but successful his entire playing career. Claude Giroux will be hungry, to win that championship he was unable to win. As the captain of this franchise.
The only problem is that with Clark, he was able to, when he moved upstairs, he was able to say, I'm no longer Bobby, I'm Bob. What can Claude do to change his name? He's got to make some sort of adjustment.
He's gonna combine. He's gonna be Mr. G.
He's
gonna be like Mr. Snyder, but Mr. G.
Mr. G. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna be.
Okay.
I'm still calling Danny.
Oh, I think that's fine.
Like, because he doesn't like Dan. That's not like a thing in French.
Yeah, that's fair.
And
Daniel.
no one's calling him Daniel.
Yeah, I refer to him as Danny when I ask questions. I think
when I
don't think he has
interviewed
a
him, I
problem
called
with
him Danny, and he didn't say like I'm not a child.
Yeah,
so
he's like, no, I'm Daniel.
I'm Daniel.
Bill,
Yeah,
William.
I hate that. All right, and that is all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 4:30. Tomorrow is the day. It's a different time. It's 4:30 tomorrow, so half hour later start. But that's all the time we have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Search PHLY Flyers wherever there are podcasts, and while you're doing that, maybe give us one of them 5-star reviews, share it with a friend, all that great stuff. And we'll be forever grateful. My name is Bill Matz for Charlie O'Connor. Have a great week, Philly.